Welcome to another episode of the Taryn Reeve Show. Today, I am joined by Nancy McKay from Colorado. Nancy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Taryn. It's great to be here with you.
Perfect. Now, Nancy, I'm going to give you a little introduction to those of you who don't yet know how fabulous you are. Nancy is the founder of Amazing Outlook Coaching. She is a certified life and Equus coach, helping women virtually and with horses to uncover the limiting beliefs that are keeping them stuck in the muck. As a result, they create a life filled with joy, purpose, and freedom by finding the gifts in adversity. Nancy is a contributing author to 2 previous books, Ready to Fly, Volume 3, and the international bestseller Phoenix Rising, Powerful Women Who Rose from the Ashes to Claim Their Place. Nancy is also a frequent podcast guest and speaker, sharing her inspiring story of recovery and creating a new life after cancer. Nancy lives in Lakewood, Colorado with her husband and their 2 rescued Westies. Nancy, you have had quite the journey, and I can't wait to dive into this discussion with you. But before we do that, for those listening or watching who haven't yet read Corporate Dropouts, can you give us a sneak peek of what your chapter was about?
Sure. Well, it really kind of covered my entire working life for the most part. The majority of my time I've spent in the oil and gas industry, and that was really fun, really fun. A lot of partying in that industry.
Okay.
And also very limiting and interesting, very interesting. After my cancer diagnosis 7 years ago, that changed my perspective. And up until then, I was pretty content with corporate life. I was doing pretty well, and it was just, I had always known that I had an entrepreneurial streak in me. And so I would go through these phases where I'd be, quite content being in the corporate world. And then I'd have phases where, it was kind of like an itch you couldn't scratch. It really sometimes felt like it was not a good fit. And I worked for several different oil and gas companies during my career because it's such a volatile industry that, you go through the ups and downs and the roller coaster of the economy and so on and so forth. And so I got laid off several times. And, the last company I was with them for 9 years, and I retired from that job almost 3 years ago. So, and I've had a lot of other little, not little, but other jobs in between. I sold artwork in the Pacific Northwest, and I was a kitchen and bath designer for several years. So,
okay, so quite different
wide variety.
Yeah, very wide variety. So, what got you into your current business and what you do now?
Well, like I mentioned a little bit ago, the cancer diagnosis really changed my perspective on life. I was diagnosed early stage ovarian cancer. So I wasn't a late stage fighting for my life sort of thing. But, I think anytime any of us hear the C word, we kind of freak out and I started making funeral plans, even though I was early stage. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But so it was just, as I was going through treatment and as I went back to work, and I had this feeling like, is that all there is? you know, and it was so persistent that I just couldn't ignore it. And so I really dove back into the self-development pool. You know, I took a course with Brene Brown and I did a bunch of reading, and I had been working with a life coach, and I thought, gosh, you know, this is fabulous. I think that I could do well at this. I think I could really like this. And one thing led to another, and I enrolled in coach training when I was 61. And now I've got 3 certifications behind me, and I'm working on a 4th. So
amazing.
So I'm a life coach. I'm an Equus coach. And so my preferred method of coaching is with horses, working as a life coach with horses as my co-facilitators. And that's so exquisite just because it feels like magic every time I work with a client with a horse.
Yeah. So can I ask you then, like I grew up around horses. My family has had horses since as long as I can remember. Why horses in this particular capacity?
Well, horses are so intuitive. They're really incredibly intuitive. And because they're herd animals, they are very aware of their surroundings and they want to be connected. So they're prey animals. So they have to be aware of their surroundings so that they can stay alive. And so all of those things contribute to their ability to mirror back to us what we are putting out into the world. So if we are, I kind of call them lie detectors. So if we, you know, go into a round pen with them and we act as if everything is fine on the outside, you know, but inside we're worried about something big, you know, then they can tell that we don't have that congruity going on in our energy. They can feel it. And so as co-facilitators, and I can watch the horse, and if the horse is on the other side of the round pen, then I know that they are not wanting to connect with this person for some reason. And chances are it's because they're not being honest with themselves. Doesn't necessarily matter if they're not honest with me, because the horse doesn't speak English. So they don't know what the words mean that are coming out of their mouth. They can sense the energy. And when people land on their truth, or when they're, you know, before they land on their truth, when they're trying to keep a secret, sort of, you know, and, you know, keep a good face, right? Then the horse picks up on that incongruency. So as soon as they land on their truth, our bodies instinctively relax. Once we kind of surrender, right? We just kind of go, oh, well, the horse picks up on that.
Yes.
And so now they're more apt to connect with us because the energy that we're putting out is one of congruency and authenticity. And so they trust us then. Otherwise, they won't trust us. If they can sense that, it's because they don't, you know, they won't trust us. So it's fascinating. And so when someone is, you know, really struggling with something and they land on their truth and the horse senses it and approaches them and comes up to them, and that's why it's so magical, because it's just it's just magic. I mean, it's just the coolest thing ever. And the client then, you know, senses this incredible connection. And then they feel it on a visceral level, right? They can really feel that shift and see the evidence of it right then and there. And so it really has a huge impact on them, you know, much more than coaching like you and I are talking right now virtually.
Yeah.
You know, it's effective and will certainly get there, but it's more effective in a shorter period of time with a horse. It just tightens everything up, and it's more effective, and it's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's my favorite way of working with clients.
I can see why. And, you know, when I first got to know you inside of the Phoenix Rising book, you gave me such a gift of understanding, because when I was really suffering from chronic depression and major anxiety, I had my horse. He's since living with somebody else, but I used to try and ride him, right? And he just used to misbehave and be scared of everything and just be so highly strung and shying and just carrying on, you know. And what he was reacting to in hindsight was my anxiety and my depression. And he was smart enough to realize that. And I had no idea, right? Because I was still operating in that level of everything's fine, I can do this, I'm amazing kind of situation. But he knew, you know, and I really struggled with it for so long, going, well, why, you know, is he acting like this? And I eventually stopped riding him, and he went to another home. But it's one of my biggest regrets now, because it was everything to do with me and nothing to do with him. So it's absolutely a very sad situation for me, but also a beautiful gift of understanding. So, you know, the power of animals and horses, which is why I get so angry about the mistreatment of animals. You know, they're so much more smarter and intuitive than we give them credit for. You know,
absolutely.
We think as humans, I still am surprised, how are we top of the food chain? Because I look at some people and I'm like, how are you still alive? Like, how are you still operating like this? And the animals are so much smarter than we are. We can learn a lot from them. I think it's
absolutely
fabulous that you're providing. Now, can you tell me, do you have any nuggets of wisdom perhaps for what was your biggest learning from your time in corporate to moving into your own thing, especially at, you know, a later stage in life where people would be wanting to wind down and you're like, no, I'm ready to go again. I think it's amazing. Tell us more.
Well, I think my biggest nugget is it's never too late to do something that you love.
Yes.
And so, you know, if you're in a career, if you feel stuck, then there's something else there that is calling to you probably. And that's our intuition, right? When we can tap into that, you know, if we allow ourselves to get quiet and listen to our intuition, our inner wisdom, then there is really something to that. And someone made a quote, and I should know who said this, because it's brilliant, I think. And that is, you can't have a thought or basically a dream about something that you can't succeed at, because it's like God or the universe doesn't work that way. They won't, the seed won't be planted for you to do something if you're set up to fail. That just doesn't happen. Now, as I'm saying these words, I'm thinking about all the people who have, tried to do something that they truly loved, that they weren't able to succeed at. And I think a lot of that comes from what our culture's definition of success is, right?
Yeah.
So just because you may not make a living at it doesn't mean you're not successful.
Yeah.
The fact that you're filling your soul with this passion, that's success. It's something that you can't deny yourself. And if you do, then you're going to be hitting lots of resistance because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of muddied the water there, but you know, I really believe that if there's something that you feel is calling you, then you should do it.
Yes.
Life's too short.
Yeah.
And you know, my mantra when I was you know, unhappy at my last job was, I didn't get sober and survive cancer to be miserable. And so, but I'm the only one that can do something about that, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You have to be brave enough to take the step.
Exactly. It's courage to go against maybe perhaps what society tells us success looks like, and courage to leave your comfort zone and the safety net of everything you've known up until that point. It does take a lot of courage. I was saying on a call this morning with the authors for Corporate Dropouts that only crazy people are entrepreneurs. It's like getting punched in the face again and again and again, and you just keep coming back for more. It's also the most rewarding, fulfilling, joyful process at the same time. It's such a paradox.
It really is.
It really is. We've spoken a little bit about your business, but I do have a question for you, Nancy. Your symbol is the dragonfly, and I can see 3 dragonflies just in the vision of my screen here. Tell me more about the symbol of the dragonfly, what it means to you.
Well, it represents transformation for me. And so that's, you know, getting sober was the biggest transformation I've made in my life. And so I've always loved dragonflies just because they're beautiful. And then when I realized what the meaning of them was, it landed for me. It just so resonated with me, and I just had to use them as a logo. And so I've redesigned my logo that now my new one incorporates a horse with a dragonfly. So
I haven't seen that one yet.
So it's very I hope it's very pretty. I think it's very pretty. And
I'm sure it is.
Because I think horses are magic and dragonflies are, I think they're magic too. I think they go well together, and they bring in this message of truth and transformation. So that's part of the phases of my coaching business are, you know, we discover your truth, and then we transform so that you can thrive. And so it's just a really lovely passage. And
truth, transform, and thrive. That's really beautiful, very sacred journey is the word that's coming to me.
It really is.
Beautiful.
It really is.
Gift to be able to facilitate, Nancy. Now, who do you love to work with? Who is the woman or the man perhaps that you are looking for to support through the 3 T's?
Well, I love to work with women. I think women have, well, as far as alcohol goes, women are targeted very heavily by the alcohol industry, and women are very susceptible to alcohol use disorder. And so they're more likely to fall into addiction with alcohol than men are. And it's a really destructive disease no matter who has it. But for women, there's this real element of shame that goes with it, you know, and that they can't admit that they have a problem. That's one of the reasons why so many people don't do anything about it when they could do it fairly easily, because they're afraid to admit there's a problem. And then then it just gets worse and worse because it's a progressive disease. So it's, if I can help women when they have that intuition, when that intuition is knocking on the door saying, I think maybe we have a problem here.
Yeah.
If I can reach them at that point, then their life won't have to take a drastic turn like mine did. And, there was no one around when I was in my 40s and drinking the way I did, and so I want to provide that for women who, haven't necessarily hit rock bottom, although I certainly want to help that demographic as well. But I really, really try to, invite these women who are struggling and they just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are you up to, either business-wise or personal-wise, Nancy? What's next for you? What have you got coming up? I'm sure you've got lots happening.
Well, I've got a few irons in the fire. It's
I love it.
Fun.
Yes, it is fun, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to be doing a equine summit. It's called Experiencing Equine Wisdom from the Woes. And that'll be in May. Okay. So they're gathering a bunch of Equus coaches and equine therapists and great horse people together for a summit so that we can spread the word about Equus coaching and working with horses. And that's really fun. And then I'll be speaking at the Women for Sobriety annual conference in Portland in June.
Yeah. And
then I'll be having hope to have, it's on the books, retreat for women who are struggling with alcohol in Arizona in September. So,
amazing. Wow. Yeah. You don't do anything by halves, do you?
Pardon me?
You don't do anything by halves, do you?
No, not really.
I love that.
You kind of just jump in with both feet.
Yes. So you have got 3 published works that have happened so far, 2 of them with me. Is there any chance of a solo book coming out in the future?
I'm not sure. I'd like to think that I've got a book in me, but I'm not sure. And right now isn't the right time for me to birth it, but it's, it's been something that I've thought about over the years, and so hopefully.
Yeah, I think it would be an amazing story. You have, you've gone through so much and can really give that inspiration. I mean, you became sober, you overcame cancer, you started your business at 61. It's just, what a beautiful, beautiful ride. And I'm sure you're not stopping there. I would expect nothing less from you.
Well, touch wood.
Yep.
I won't stop there. So
good. I'm so glad to hear it. Now, what was it like working with myself and the team at Four Eagles Publishing?
Well, it's been fabulous. I mean, you make it really easy for us as writers. And I had contributed my first chapter to a book about a year before I started working with you on Phoenix Rising. And that was my first foray into writing professionally. And so it was, you just made it so easy. And, you did so much of the legwork for all of us in both books, and the promoting and the strategy behind getting to bestseller status is just, it's mind-boggling. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. Yes. And we're, I know I'm grateful, and I think everyone else is too. It's a magnificent experience.
Thank you so, so much. Now, how can people find you, Nancy, if they want to come with the life coaching or the Equus coaching or just to be in your space? Where can people come and find more about you?
Well, the best place is my website, which is amazingoutlookcoaching.com. Mm-hmm. And I'm on Facebook. Nancy McKay is my personal page. Amazing Outlook is my business page there. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. My handle on Instagram is Recovery with Nancy. Mm. And so, I'm just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, of course. Now, I will pop all of those links in the show notes for this episode so that you guys can easily click and go and hang out with Nancy. And if you haven't purchased your copy of Corporate Dropouts yet or Phoenix Rising, Nancy has written in both. They are on Amazon. They're available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. So go and hop on there, use the search bar, Phoenix Rising or Corporate Dropouts, or both perhaps. And if you know of somebody who could benefit from either of those books, they've got very different energy and very different stories behind them, but so much inspiration and power and provoking content inside of
the
there.
Stories are amazing in both
yes.
Just,
yeah. So exciting. So, and also what I wanted to say is make an invite is that if anybody is listening and watching this and you're thinking, I want a bit of that magic that's happening over there. If you want to participate in a multi-author book project, which is where you write with, I take 20 people in my book, so 19 other amazing people. Come and find out more about the current project, open for applications, or if you're wanting to write your solo book, we do writing, publishing, and marketing, and we are very passionate about not diluting your voice and your message and creating big ripples of impact with your work. So come and find us at foreaglespublishing.com, or of course, send me a message wherever you want. I am a real person. I love real conversations, just like we had here with Nancy today.
Yep.
So
you're wonderful.
Oh, thank you, my love. I think you're wonderful. And thank you so much for being here with me today. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to speak to you. I love your accent and I love your energy, and I just love working with you. It's so much fun.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon.
Oh, I'm sure.
Bye.